This is Dr. Hamilton. Welcome to my video series on William Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. In this video, I'd like to discuss Beatrice. So, we've discussed how male camaraderie has become a formidable force in this play. It's first established as a kind of camaraderie between soldiers who are returning to Messina from a war, and they're returning victorious. We're going to see how this male camaraderie, which defines these bonds between these men, will become toxic when Don Pedro and Claudio, the romantic lead, choose to believe Don John, a guy who has an obvious reputation for villainy, over an innocent woman hero. It will be Benedick, the proud misogynist, who will ironically become the exception to these toxic male relationships. But Benedick doesn't get there by accident. He gets there because Beatrice intervenes, and she will set Benedick up and give him an absolute choice. Either he chooses his love for her, in which case he will have to kill Claudio, his best friend, who has humiliated and disgraced a hero by accusing her of infidelity, or he will choose Claudio, and he will have to choose Beatrice. So in this way, this becomes actually Beatrice becomes actually a realization of the play's worst fears, that the love of a woman might cause a man to betray his sacred allegiance to his friends. But actually, of course, we find out that Beatrice's outrage is spot on, and Hero turns out to be entirely justified. So Beatrice is really set up in opposition to this male cemented authority in the play. And they will butt heads again and again. So in order to see how this works, it's important to set up precisely the dramatic situation in which we first see Beatrice introduced in the play. So the play starts with a messenger arriving. And this messenger announces that Don Pedro and his officers are on their way to Messina. And the messenger gives Leonardo this news of a war victory, and he engages in what we might call a kind of ritual praise of Don Pedro's officers. So this is sort of a ritual praise of a man by a man of other men. So we hear, for example, that Claudio has done in the figure of a lamb the feats of a lion, and so forth. It's right in the middle of this ritual praise that Beatrice interjects. I pray you, is Signor Montanto returned from the wars or no? So Montanto is unfortunately a term that's been lost to us, but I mean it's no longer in use, so a contemporary audience won't get the joke. But Montanto is a comical reference to Benedick as a kind of braggart soldier, okay? A soldier who brags but can't deliver, right? The guy who's always talking about how big and strong he is, but when it comes to actually doing something, he is a coward. The word Montanto, though, interestingly, is a technical term in fencing that means an upward thrust jab. And actually, that upward thrust jab is actually a better term for Beatrice, because this is precisely how Beatrice will interject herself into conversations, with these swift jabs, like a fencer. She has this uncanny intuition for when men are cementing their bonds with each other, and she will jab and she will thrust in between them, and she will undermine their authority, usually through uproariously funny humor. So and wit. So later Benedick will complain of Beatrice. She speaks poignards, and every word stabs, and that is absolutely right. That is her style. She thrusts in and she will make a pointed remark, and they can't do anything after that. It is absolutely hilarious. So a little later in the scene, Leonardo greets Don Pedro and his officers on their arrival. Um, Beatrice will inject again. And this is now when Benedict has arrived and Claudio and all the officers are there and they're trying to bond with Leonato. And Benedict is telling a joke and Beatrice, she comes in and interjects. I wonder that you will still be talking, Senior Benedict. Nobody marks you. Okay, so once again, you're irrelevant, you're insignificant. Nobody's listening to you, right? So she cuts him down. So she cuts Benedict down once again, precisely when he's attempted to be witty. Later at the dance in Act 2, Scene 1, lines 46 to 48, we will see Beatrice do this once again. So Leonato, Beatrice's uncle, and Antonio, her other uncle, are attempting to advise Hero. And Hero is, of course, Leonato's daughter. And they're trying to tell her what she needs to do when the prince asked her for her hand in marriage. And of course, they're saying you need to say yes, right? You need to say yes. But this is a kind of male triangle here that they've created, where these two older men, the father and the uncle, are coming in, and they're instructing her, they're ordering her what she's supposed to do, and that is, of course, when Beatrice comes in with her upthrust of wit, and to disrupt that male authority, and also to protect her cousin, Hero. So Antonio, the uncle, says, "Well, niece, I trust you will be ruled by your father." Beatrice responds, "Yes, Faith, it is my cousin's duty to make curtsy and say father as it please you. But yet for all that, cousin, let him be a handsome fellow, or else make another curtsy and say father as it please me." So once again, the father's authority as it please you, but she is joking here. She's not realistically going to prevent the marriage, but she's rearranging where the power is centered here in this exchange. And she's opening up a possibility for Hero of resistance. Not that she's going to fight back necessarily, but she's reversing the power there, disrupting the authority of these two formidable figures, right? So then again, Leonardo attempts to get the conversation back on the track. "Daughter, remember what I told you. If the prince do solicit you in that kind, you know your answer," right? So again, these are all coming in the form of orders to Hero. And so no, Hero doesn't even get a chance to answer here. Beatrice interjects, and then she says, "The fault will be in the music, cousin, if you be not wooed in good time." And then follows a very famous passage where Beatrice sends up marriage as a kind of dance. But and again, Beatrice interjects here to send up marriage, not just disrupting, not just it is hilarious, but she repositions that authority to Hero. Okay, and so I see protectiveness of Hero and her witty send up. I mean, she does not like people to impose authority on her. She asserts her freedom. She kind of dances around with her wit this very, very challenging situation where where Hero is being boxed in. And she does it in a way that's charming as opposed to ponderous and bad-tempered. And so, in fact, what Leonardo and Antonio will try to do is to stereotype her as a sort of shrew, which was like a bad-tempered, nagging kind of woman. Nah, 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 nah. But Beatrice is not a shrew. She's not bad-tempered. She has a sparkling wit that emerges in her criticism not a kind of nasty bitterness. She might be justified in having that, but it's just not her temperament. So Leonardo warns Beatrice, evoking this image of the shrew, by my troth, niece, thou wilt never get thee a husband if thou be so shrewd of thy tongue. Shrewd is a pun evoking the shrew. Antonio calls her too cursed, which is a way to say that she's proud and self-endeared. So but like I said, the shrew is not what Beatrice is, and they even acknowledge this. She's just too good-humored and self-reliant for this criticism that she's ill-tempered to really hit the mark. She even lacks any of the melancholy elements that might make her open to this kind of criticism. Leonardo observes, there's little of the melancholy element in her, my lord. She is never sad but when she sleeps, and not even then. For I have heard my daughter say she hath often dreamt of unhappiness, and waked herself with laughing. So there's a hint perhaps here that she's like a satirist who manages unhappiness with laughter. But I think that the overwhelming note here is a sort of triumphant joyfulness. She hath often dreamt of unhappiness, and waked herself with laughing. I mean, this is a kind of joyfulness that is triumphant. Indeed, Don Pedro, who is so enamored of Beatrice that he actually asks her to marry him, observes after the dance, your silence most offends me, and to be merry best becomes you, for out of question you were born in a merry hour. And Beatrice responds, no, sure, my lord, my mother cried, but then there was a star danced, and under that I was born. So you see here, there's the possibility of melancholy that's unexplained. My mother cried, but then there was a star danced, and under that I was born. And this image of star dancing, it suggests a kind of, I don't know, an almost mythical, undefeated joy. And you feel as if Beatrice is almost being written as kind of having an almost mythical sense of coruscating wit and joyfulness about her. So, although elsewhere, Beatrice's friends will accuse her of pride, I think Hero says disdain and scorn, right, sparkling in her eyes in Act 3, Scene 1, line 54. And Beatrice herself will take these criticisms to heart. Her pride is certainly vindicated, as is her keenness of sight, except when it comes to Benedick. When she declares to her uncle, I have a good eye, uncle, I can see a church by daylight, she is certainly right. She is the only one, along with the friar, who immediately see that Hero has been wronged when Claudio horrifically denounces Hero at the wedding. So we might say that there is one area where Beatrice lacks insight, and that is into her love for Benedick. And this raises the question, what is the cause of this lack of insight? We get some idea about why she doesn't see the feelings that she has for Benedick that literally everybody else around her sees. So when Benedick storms out of the prince's company, upon Beatrice's approach, after he's complained about Beatrice calling him the prince's jester and all of the witty ways that she has attacked him at the dance, the prince sort of asks her why, what do you have against Benedick? Why do you constantly put him down? And basically she says, He won my heart with false dice. That is Act 2, Scene 1, lines 257 to 8. And so we don't really hear how or why or what happened, but we know that Benedict at some point has, at least from Beatrice's point of view, has broken faith with her. Now, does this account for the way that she attacks male braggadocio, the way that she undermines male authority, her keen sense of injustice, her defense of the powerless? No. And does it uh, explain why she has this love of satire, and this joyful love of satire? No. Um, I think that in some ways you could say that she's a proto-feminist. I think that um, she certainly loves sending up the ridiculousness of men, and she seems to have this generous temperament that the Elizabethans would have called sanguine, somehow born out of laughter, out of a joyful laughter. But I think that, in addition to being a proto-feminist, I think that she is really very productively seen as an exponent of freedom. I think that she seems to dance with her wit out of any situation where she is constrained or overdetermined, or where someone else is constrained or overdetermined. She doesn't like people fitting into molds and being subservient to some authority. And she wants to, and her response is to find hilarious, imaginative spaces where she both undermines authority and also experiences a kind of freedom. And so we'll talk about that more. But thanks very much for listening, everyone. This concludes my first lesson on Beatrice.